The FBI 10 Most Wanted list has been maintained by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation since 1950. Since then, more than 500 fugitives have been on the list. As of November 15, 2023, 93% of the people on the list have been apprehended, and 31% of them were due to public assistance. So, who eluded the FBI the longest? Starting from the bottom, here are the top 5. Charles Lee Heron, 18 years, 4 months and 9 days. He was born in West Virginia on April 21, 1937, and had a troubled childhood. His mother died when he was young, and his father was an abusive alcoholic. He dropped out of school in the 9th grade and joined the Marine Corps. After being discharged, he was a truck driver and a mechanic. In 1968, Heron was pulled over by the police in Indiana for a traffic violation. He got into an argument with the 2 police officers and opened fire, injuring both of them before fleeing the scene. On February 9, 1968, he was placed on the 10 Most Wanted Fugitives. Heron spent years on the run under assumed names in various parts of the country. He was described by the police as a black militant, although he was never linked to any political activism. While on the run, he worked several jobs, including bartending, waiting, and construction. By the time of his capture, on June 18, 1986, he had been on the list for 18 years, which was longer than anyone else. He was married and had children. On the fateful day of his arrest, he walked out of his house and surrendered to the police who were on stakeout in Jacksonville, Florida, and was extradited to Indiana. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. He was paroled in 2010 after serving 22 years of his sentence. Robert William Fisher, 19 years, 4 months and 5 days. Born April 13, 1961, in Brooklyn, New York, Fisher served in the United States Navy, worked as a firefighter, and then in the medical field as a respiratory therapist and surgical technician. He was living in Scottsdale, Arizona with his wife and 2 children when he allegedly committed triple homicide and arson. On April 10, 2001, his family's home exploded, with his wife and 2 children in there. Inside the house, the children's throats have been slit, and Mary, his wife, has been shot in the back of her head. The only suspect was Fisher, who is believed to have escaped in Mary's car, which was later discovered in a forest near Young, Arizona. He was caught earlier on an ATM camera. Fisher was reported to have exhibited disturbing and violent behavior. He was controlling and unfaithful to his wife. He was added to the list on June 29, 2002, and removed on November 3, 2021, because the extensive publicity his case received had not yielded any fruitful results. Probably the most infamous on this list, he is still at large, and there are several speculations and theories regarding his disappearance and what ultimately happened to him. Glenn Godwin, 19 years, 5 months and 12 days. Born on June 26, 1958, in Miami, Florida, and grew up in California. In 1980, Godwin and his roommate, Frank Soto, robbed and killed a drug dealer and pilot, Kim Robert LaValle. Godwin stabbed LaValle 26 times, drove his body to the desert, and blew up the truck with homemade explosives to disguise the murder. On August 3, 1980, the blown-up truck was found, which led to the arrest and conviction of Godwin and Soto. While serving a life sentence at Folsom State Prison, a maximum security prison, he escaped on June 5, 1987, through a hole he cut in the fence wire and escaped into the storm drain that empties into the American River. An accomplice, suspected to be his wife, Shelley Rose, or former cellmate, Lorenz Karlik, left a raft for him to float down the river. Godwin fled to Mexico, and his attempt to participate in the illegal drug trade ended shortly after he was arrested and convicted in Mexico. He was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison in 1991. He was in the process of being extradited to the U.S. when he committed another murder in Mexican prison, killing a member of the cartel. This delayed his extradition and gave him time to escape from a Mexican prison in September 1991. He is believed to be in Latin America using several aliases and is currently involved in illicit drug trades. Considered armed and very dangerous, he was placed on the list on December 7, 1996, and about 20 years later, on May 19, 2016, he was removed from the top 10 list, although there is still a $20,000 reward for his capture. Donald Eugene Webb, 25 years, 10 months and 27 days. Born July 14, 1931 in Oklahoma City, dishonorably discharged from the Navy. Webb was a career criminal with convictions for burglary, possession of counterfeit money, possession of a weapon and dangerous instrument, breaking and entry, armed bank robbery, grand larceny, and car theft, and had spent a 2-year prison term in New York. On December 4, 1980, Police Chief Gregory Adams noticed a car blocking the exit of a parking lot. He approached the driver and asked for his driver's license. The driver gave the police fraudulent documents before shooting at him. Adam returned fire, but they were not fatal. The shooter, believed to be Donald Eugene Webb, got out of his car, disarmed the 9-year veteran of law enforcement, and pistol-whipped Adams with his own revolver. He shot Adams about 4 times, 2 to the chest at close range, before making his escape. When Adam was found, he was so badly beaten he was unrecognizable. He did not recognize his attacker and died on his way to the hospital. Webb was the main suspect and was charged in absentia with the murder. He was placed on the most wanted list on May 4, 1981, and a nationwide manhunt began. On September 14, 1999, after 18 years, he became the fugitive with the longest tenure on the FBI's most wanted list. Although still a fugitive, the FBI removed his spot on the top 10 on March 31, 2007. On December 4, 2015, the reward for his arrest was increased to $100,000. In 2016, a secret room was found in the house of Webb's wife, Lillian Webb. Signs that Donald was living there were found in that room. Adams' widow, Mary Ann, filed a civil lawsuit on June 1, 2017, against Lillian Webb. In exchange for dropping the lawsuit and criminal immunity, Lillian confessed to hiding Donald for nearly 19 years till his death in 1999 and was buried in his wife's backyard. And finally, Victor Manuel Jena, 32 years, 7 months and 1 day. A member of Machetero, a militant and insurgent group that campaigns for the independence of Puerto Rico from the United States. Born on June 24, 1958, Victor became the 386th fugitive to be placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives list for robbing Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo used to store large amounts of money in its depot at Culbro Industrial Park in West Hartford, keeping as much as $30 million at the site. The depot was guarded by individuals on minimum wage, Jena being one of them and second in command. On that fateful day, 25-year-old Jena went to work like any other day and spent most of the day with his co-workers. At some point during the day, he pulled a gun on his co-workers, tied them up, and stole $7,017,152 from the cash depot, the largest cash robbery in the history of the United States. He put the money in his car trunk and drove away, never to be heard from again. He was systematic in the money he stole, leaving behind coins and uncirculated currency. Jena was placed on the list on May 14, 1984, and remains at large today. He is believed to be living in Cuba. On April 11, 2010, he surpassed the previous record holder, Donald Eugene Webb, to become the fugitive who has spent the most time on the list. In conclusion, the FBI's top 10 most wanted list has seen some of the most notorious criminals in U.S. history, some of whom managed to evade capture for decades. While some were shielded by their families, others used cunning escapes to remain free. These fugitives demonstrate the challenges of bringing dangerous criminals to justice. Yet, the relentless pursuit by law enforcement continues to close these cases, reminding us that justice is never forgotten, even if it takes decades to achieve.